This begins part 2 of 4 of the recording, Who Will Protect My Children? The Journey. The Journey. Relative to the journey, it was stated in the Who Will Protect My Children, the request and misunderstanding it, there were 3 actions in response to the voice. The third event was to understand it involved a journey, which I was already on, but the journey was not known by my mind and leading me to an unknown and unexpected outcome. In time, I came to realize the overall journey itself has been simply following the unfoldment of my life path and my reason for incarnating. However, to suggest the existence of a life path did not surface as a topic on which I really understood and was drawn to write about or teach another about did not show up until about 1998, about 10 years after hearing the voice. In essence, the concept of a life path and a reason for incarnating were not concepts active in my conscious awareness. I was aware it was reported we make agreements before we incarnate, and I was aware I did incarnate. I was also aware many say we are here to learn lessons and that the human in physical creation is like going to school. However, I was totally unaware of having a life path, and we are here for specific reasons that went well beyond the concept of having agreements and the concept that we're in school. Rather, we each are here on a mission, which we agreed to undergo for reasons we may have. Hence, my human mind was unaware of the journey and what it was about. These are 3 of the major realizations in the journey of our exploration of our creativity, namely our life path, our reason or reasons for incarnating, and we are guided even if we do not become aware of the guidance we get or do not listen to the guidance we receive. 3 phases of the journey. There were 3 phases to this journey. Each can be represented as a series of chapters in my life. The first phase was an unconscious phase. Key to following my life path during this unconscious phase was being aware of and following my internal compass and a particular deep feeling of inner satisfaction. Knowing to follow my inner compass early from childhood is probably the greatest gift I've been given. The second phase is what I would call the journey of exploration into our creativity. It was about continuing to follow my internal compass, but here I made conscious choices to explore creativity. I chose to look to find truly new creative solutions to address the organizational and technical deficiencies faced in the workplace and to get individuals out of the box of their own thinking. Here it became clear both my life path and the experiences I had been led to have before consciously choosing to explore our creativity, and this conscious journey of exploration of our creativity is about our understanding as to how to access the depth and breadth of our creative power and creative ability. The third phase began after I acted in a profound compassion to apply what I learned about our creativity to free the heart of a creative spirit, the creative passion of an individual. This experience catapulted me into a deeper exploration of the nature of our creativity and the nature of creation, and how our creative power and creative ability causes us to create our experiences and the reality of our experiences. However, I continue to describe the journey simply as a journey of exploration into our creativity, but it was a deeper exploration. Only in time did I realize the overall deeper aspects of the journey into our creativity across all 3 phases was really about facing the God of the underworld, and I could call my life path as an unconscious journey of compassion into hell and back to meet the God of the underworld. The essence for stating it as an unconscious journey of compassion into hell and back is briefly as follows, but the circumstances are further discussed later in this recording. An awareness arose in choosing to act in a profound compassion to apply what I knew about our creativity to attempt to free what I would call the heart of another. At this time, I used the term heart to describe what I came to ultimately see as our creative spirit and its heartfelt passion. The reason I attempted to free the heart of another is because I witnessed the energy of an individual's creative spirit being bound in another individual about 10 years earlier in another context, and what occurred in releasing this individual's creative spirit. At the time, I chose to act to face this individual's heart. I told God, as I understood God at the time, if I have to go to hell for what I seek to do, so be it. Either help me or get the hell out of the way. I seemed to intuitively know I had to be prepared to break any rule and overcome any obstacle to free this individual's creative passion. I knew what was possible. In acting, I was successful in freeing the individual's heart, but over time I saw the Greek myth of Persephone play out before my eyes. I saw and experienced the god of the underworld capturing the individual's creative spirit. In seeing it being captured, I realized it was also something I saw 20 years earlier in a completely different context. The question was, why and how was this creative spirit and its heartfelt passion being captured? As a result, much of the subsequent journey of exploration from this point on moved into looking at the nature of the god of the underworld and how it functioned. But this exploration was what my life path was set up to do. In the same way, my life experiences gave me the exquisite qualifications for the job which gave rise to the voice, my life experiences continued to give me what I needed to explore the god of the underworld. My journey of exploration into our creativity led me to see the journey and eventually come to understand what is provided here and in subsequent recordings. Although exposed to the journey early in my life, it took nearly a half a lifetime to see the journey and recognize the journey and to talk about it. But to fully understand, after acting to free the heart, it took another 28 years in the journey. It was only in May 2024 when I found what appeared to be the final piece of the puzzle to fully understand it. 4 aspects to the journey. Relative to the journey of exploration in my life, I find there were 4 aspects that were weaving a pattern. In time, it became clear each of these aspects needed to be understood as to how they worked relative to the journey. The way these 4 worked together is what guided me to the experiences I needed to have to be groomed for the understanding I am here to give about our creativity. One aspect was an unconscious or unseen aspect. This aspect brought certain experiences into my life where each piece provided a piece of the puzzle about our creativity. However, usually I was unaware of exactly how to use the piece that was revealed and what role it played in the understanding. A second aspect was the conscious choices I made to explore creativity as an aspect of life for what information the experiences may provide about our creativity. This was about an awareness and a particular focus of my attention and awareness on my internal compass. Then there are 2 views of creation, the view of the heart and the view of the mind, and each needed to be explored. The third aspect is the view of the heart. The view of the heart is about what we are feeling in the experience. It's about the heart and our heartfelt passion and our internal compass. This aspect is symbolized by the heart and is usually about what we feel and perceive as arising from within the heart and its heartfelt creative passion. It was to follow my feeling around my heart and feeling what arises around what occurs in any given situation. Additionally, all energy carries information and all communications is carried by energy. There is information in anything we feel, and we can learn to access the information in anything we feel with the proper focus. The fourth aspect was learning to view the mind. The view of the mind and what it thinks and believes about what we experience. Learning the view of the mind was about being aware of my human mind was thinking or perceiving at a given time and event, and to realize the limitations of the human mind to understand the unseen aspects of creation and the need to look at alternative perspectives. When did the journey become conscious? The conscious part of the journey reflected an awareness and the conscious decision I made relative to the journey of exploration. This is choosing an awareness. To choose an awareness is I was aware I was choosing between options and why. The conscious part of the journey started when I chose to explore creativity. The starting point for the conscious part of the journey did not start with choosing to accept the job offer relative to addressing organizational and technical issues in the areas of nuclear and radiological safety as a response to the voice I heard, which discussed in the recording, "Who will protect my children?" the request and the misunderstanding it. Accepting the job was more of a conditioned response from my programming. From what I understood at the time, when God spoke, you follow. When God directs, all you can say is yes, yes sir, or madam, depending on what you prefer to be God. In essence, my response was unconscious and based on what I had come to believe and programmed to believe about God. In many ways, I was unaware I could have a choice. I had not yet learned to stand back and look to see the bigger picture, such as exactly who or what was asking who will protect my children. Rather, I had bought into just accepting what I was taught and programmed to believe. The real starting point for the conscious part of the journey was consciously choosing to study creativity as a manager to bring creative solutions to the problems faced in addressing the technical and managerial issues. I began to explore creativity simply to get people more creative so as to find truly creative solutions which would address the root of the issues we faced in the organization in which I was working. I wondered why people were not free to play with ideas and possibilities the way a young child is free to spontaneously play and look at options. It was to look at the question, why could people not play with options and enter the innocent, childlike play of exploration and discovery of themselves and the world they inhabit? Why were they not free to return to this most creative state of play? I needed to be placed in a situation where new and original, never before seen or experienced solutions were necessary to be able to ask this question about the loss of our ability to play. I had begun to look beyond the particular event to pull the string and look at the chain of events, both externally and internally, that led to the decision or choice that I faced. As a result of what I was finding about our creativity and the number of successful but unhappy individuals I was meeting in life in December 1995, I decided to take a journey to see if I could find an alternative way to live life. I was looking for an alternative way that would give people a way to find that satisfaction in life that seemed to be so elusive, and separately, how could one regain that ability to spontaneously play with options, at least in one's own creative imagination? What needs to be noted here is we think we are responding to life consciously when in reality we're not. We seem to be choosing, but we are not. Rather, we are just responding to life based on programming. Only when we question and look at options do we begin to consciously respond to life. Unconscious part of the journey. The unconscious part of the journey were the experiences to which I was led and continue to be led. The unconscious part is where there is no choice on my part, where I was just following what unfolded, or my response to what occurred was based upon programming and prior experiences. Some were and are experiences I had no choice but to experience. These are much like getting unexpectedly rear-ended in an automobile or experiencing the rumble of an earthquake. In these experiences to which I was led, I eventually found it was beneficial to ask if there was something to be learned or understood about the experience, or were they just an experience to be had as part of being a human being. Some of these experiences were quite revealing if I pulled the string and looked back to the chain of events that resulted in having the experience, or being in a particular place and time to have the experience. Other experiences were where I was led and I had the opportunity to choose or not choose a direction in life based upon the information or opportunity being provided. In these situations, I was being given the opportunity to choose. One such occurrence around the age of 25. How I could choose made all the difference. One such event was I chose to explore or not explore a lava tube. In being given the choice, I saw clearly divergence possible in my life. At the time, my response was more of a program response and not a conscious response. I knew which direction I had to go at that time in my life, and I was aware of the timing was not yet correct for the other path. Nevertheless, in that moment, I saw two paths. One path or option was for the moment, and the other was of the future, but I was being offered to enter that future in that moment. Here, an important point needs to be made. We need to remember to create is to bring something into existence. If it is a copy, the mind then becomes very important in the creative effort because mind needs to know all the details to make the copy, and it may stay true to what it knows if it wants to create a copy. If, however, the creation has never been seen or previously experienced, then mind does not have the prior experiences to understand what needs to be done. Here, the creative endeavor relies on feeling and aligning with the flow of energy given rise to the creation and our intuitive guidance to guide us. Our life is a creative endeavor never before experienced. Our life is totally new and original. No one lived it before and no one will live it after us. As an original creation, we need to pay attention to what we feel and what our intuitive guidance provides. Although our life is a never-before-experienced creation, we all are provided with one tool. The tool is our internal compass, and learning to follow that flow of energy given rise to the creation. Then, depending on what we are here to do, we may then be given one or more additional abilities that help to guide our life. Relative to my journey, I was blessed with 3 abilities essential for my journey. One was an exceptional awareness about my internal guidance and intuition, and knew to follow it from the very earliest days of my life. As a child, I would say I followed what I felt to be enjoyable, but in reality it was not a feeling of enjoyment, for all enjoyable experiences not give the same depth of feeling. Rather, it was really following the feeling of a deep inner satisfaction. But at the time, my mind did not have an understanding of the concept of a deep inner satisfaction as a child. Yet I was nevertheless aware of our internal compass, which we each have. I knew how to use it long before my mind understood it. The second was the ability to stand back and observe what exactly was going on, and to observe what I was both seeing and feeling about what I was experiencing. The third ability was to have a curiosity not easily satisfied. I have seen and found elegance in creation, and my curiosity is tied to seeing and experiencing that elegance. I found it in looking to see that elegance in any explanation of any event is really what confirmed I was on the correct path to understanding what I was experiencing. Although described as elegance, my mind is better said to experience a feeling of awe that I would experience, which gave rise to the mind's description of elegance. In any case, armed with these 3 tools, I entered the journey called life, seemingly not knowing where it would lead. I say seemingly not know where it would lead, because where the journey was going and what it was about did and does lie deep buried within my unconscious mind. There was and is a roadmap, an itinerary to certain types and kinds of experiences. It was just this roadmap and itinerary was not readily available to my conscious mind. There were glimmers and insights routinely revealed to me to keep me on the journey and on schedule. Throughout my life, my human mind may or may not recognize what the glimmers and the insights represented at the time they were experienced. Nevertheless, they were there, and they were guiding my life, keeping me on track and on time. From a consciousness perspective, the first 40 years of my life, I was just carried along by life. I responded to events in a way which I thought was the best way possible based upon how I was taught the way the world and creation worked, or chose based upon what others tended to choose. The unconscious part of the journey can be summarized as gaining details and understanding about how life was perceived for the time and place that I had incarnated and grew up and gained the particular experiences I needed. Of course, the world I grew up in was quickly changing, and these changes did require my thinking to change in some areas. Early in life, I had several insights about the journey that were somewhat cryptic when received. These insights were only understood over time, but nevertheless they provided guidance. Along with these insights, there were several questions which arose during my observations of life. At the time, they seemed like rhetorical questions, but they were questions which I eventually sought to answers and looked for solutions. Additionally, as I began to see how creation seemed to work, I set several intentions. These intentions, in turn, set a low-level focus for my observations in life. Once the questions were raised in my mind, and along with the intentions I set, I started to look for answers, whether I realized it or not. Each question, once asked and intention set, acted as a search radar in my subconscious mind, continually scanning for the answer. This in turn caused me to move into a particular direction in my life and what I explored in my curiosity. The unconscious part of the journey was about accumulating understanding, not about accumulating knowledge. The underlying focus of accumulating understanding became a common thread in what I read and explored. What is interesting is the jobs to which I was drawn required me to look at accidents or system failures and why people made mistakes, and to look at why systems failed and the chain of events leading to accidents. Such explorations were quite revealing. I learned I could extrapolate how systems would fail just by watching and observing. Actions speak louder than words. Synchronicity in the events in my life was one of the things that was most profound in the unconscious part of my journey. It became clear there were threads that were weaved through my life. The synchronistic events in my life put them together and put me on a path and a course that I was on. how the events unfolded in my life was giving me the information I needed about our creativity. Conscious journey. Moving from discussing the unconscious journey to the conscious journey, the next phase of the journey is where I would be asked to make conscious choices as to how to respond to events. I was being aware of what I was choosing and why. The conscious part of the journey eventually changed the role of both the mind and the heart in my life. Because of seeing and experiencing, the role of mind and heart differed from what I originally understood what the mind and heart to be. I could no longer live my life as I did. The conscious portion of the journey became the occasion for these other two aspects, mind and heart, to change. Choosing to act in compassion, to apply what I learned in the journey of exploration of our creativity to free a heart, my experiences as a result of acting in compassion and knowing I received, my understanding of mind and heart changed rather radically. Relative to the heart, I followed my feeling, and feeling that arose around what occurred in any given situation was important and used by me since my childhood. However, after acting to free the heart, what resulted caused me to become more aware of any feeling and use them more intently. Here I might add that when faced with certain situations, I could see what my mind understood and then look at the feeling about the situation. I found often the choice I needed to make. Sometimes my ego was in agreement, but often ego wanted to try and convince me to choose otherwise. Here it was about the need to follow my feelings and intuitive guidance and to be aware of the feelings that arose around what occurred in any given situation. Here I needed to understand how to learn to use the ego as a creative tool that it is, and use the human mind to navigate from the heart. That is, allow the heart to set the direction in life and then have mind figure out how to do it based upon all that it has learned in physical creation. Relative to the mind, my perception changed radically. This aspect of mind radically changed shortly after starting the conscious journey. Relative to the mind, two things occurred. One was I began to become very aware what mind was thinking or perceiving at a given time. The second thing which changed relative to the mind is that originally I believed my human mind, what I perceived it to provide, was correct and a correct perception of creation. Originally I had no reason to doubt it. The radical change in perception caused me to become more aware of what my human mind was thinking or perceiving at a given time and event, but also aware of how limited our human mind is relative to the infinity of creation, and how incorrect my view and perception of creation in the way that I had been taught and programmed to think about creation. I found I had to re-educate myself in many ways, blending it all into understanding. What is interesting is the conscious part of the journey to consciously choosing to explore our creativity did not occur until I was 40 years old and a manager overseeing some of the most prestigious national laboratories. I found it difficult to get people to think outside the confines of the box of their own thinking to give creative solutions to the problems we face. Rather, people tended to continually repackage the past in a new way. I began to ponder why some of the most brilliant minds at the National Laboratory seem to be unable to play with ideas the way a small child is free to play. That is, to enter a state of play much like the spontaneous and innocent childlike play of discovery and exploration of themselves in their world in which they inhabit. The question I pondered was, why is this ability lost? It was in choosing to explore and answer this question that I took conscious responsibility for my journey of exploration into our creativity. This conscious choice to explore creativity was essentially opening the proverbial Pandora's box relative to our creativity and understanding how creation worked. It caused the death to much of what I had thought and believed about creation. In this choice also came a clarity. It was the clarity to navigate from the heart and direct my ego desires and ego wants to follow my intuitive guidance and what I was feeling to guide my life. Up to this time, the journey of exploration was unconscious, and I was being guided to experiences I would need to understand for what would need to be done consciously. In many ways, the first 40 years of my life was about understanding how the world worked. It was more about seeing what the normal way we view creation for this time and place created and manifested, and if it was producing the desired results. The criteria I used for whether something worked or not worked was, did the creation move towards creating the space for the creative spirit within the hearts of each individual of the participants to move towards expansion of their ability to live true to their heart and their uniqueness and provide alignment with their life path. In acting consciously, I observed the unconscious part of the journey is where the magic of creation resided, and how our lives are guided was quite evident. It was in the conscious review of the early parts of the journey, it was very clear how I was led to certain experiences, and how I felt about those experiences and judged those experiences was so essential to the journey. Often what I felt in an experience caused me to look at what my human mind was thinking about the experience. Many of the experiences to which I was unconsciously led, all I could say is, that's strange, or simply interesting, for the experience took me out of the normal way of expecting events to occur. Often it seemed like magic. I did not have the necessary experience or understanding to really understand what was occurring. But there was something unusual about the experience I did not understand. In many ways, this first 40 years of my life was obtaining the necessary minimum set of experiences to know how to respond to the next phase of my life and the conscious journey. This idea of getting the necessary minimum set of experience is similar to how I prepared to be offered the job which gave rise to the voice which I heard. My life path had carried me to certain diverse types and kinds of experiences within the nuclear industry, such that my experience was tailor-made to give me both the understanding and credentials to have the managerial and technical skills to address the deficiencies in the nuclear and radiological safety. In this regard, our life is continually preparing us and guiding us if we open ourselves to see. As such, my life path is guiding me to compile this information about our creativity and post it. Relative to the first 40 years of my life, it was just to be carried along by life and respond to events based upon how I was taught the way the world and creation worked, or chose based upon what others tended to do. But there were three things of which I was very aware of in this unconscious part of the journey. The first, the preference I had for certain things. These preferences were in part related to the unconscious guidance for my journey. One particular one was a desire to garden and have a garden from the earliest memories when no one in my family gardened. Some individual would say these preferences were past life carryovers, yet gardening our life and our mind was and is key to nurturing the creative spirit and the heartfelt passion, and very much about this life. The second thing was glimmers or flashes of insights about my journey, but seemed to make little sense at the time, but they became important. In some ways, the insights seemed to make life a riddle, and in contemplating the riddle, insights would come. One such riddle was, how did wanting to play the violin at age 4 reflect my life journey? The second was how I knew at age 6 I came to play, but I also knew it was not the type and kind of play that I was doing at age 6. It was a very different type and kind of play. The third question that arose in my mind at various times in my life about what I was seeing and had a great influence on the journey by focusing my attention and awareness at a low level, much like carrying an unsolved riddle in the mind. As I began to consciously consider exploring the answer to these questions, it was part of entering the conscious journey of exploration, for I began to make conscious choices about what direction to move in this journey of exploration. Based on these questions, one such question I asked was my reason for exploring how psychics perceived what they did. I clearly remember where and when I had the thought of wondering if the human body can be seen as an energy detector. Then, 21 years later, I consciously chose to explore that question. This completes part 2 of 4 of the recording, Who Will Protect My Children? The Journey.